narratives, regardless of whatever, there seems to be massive energy coming onto the earth, or we're our frequencies raising, or I don't know, however you want to put it, but there's definitely change in the air. You know,
Yeah.
it seems like, I don't know, it's just such a multifaceted. That's not even doing it any justice. Like just an infinitesimal amount of individual fractal streams of whatever coming in and just doing a number on the body, the experience. I don't know.
Yeah. Hang on one sec, man. I just want to turn on my work profile just in case, man. I don't think anybody's going to get a hold of me. I spent the last like 4 nights in the Ukraine.
What do you mean? Dimensionally or working?
Yeah, I travel at night. I couldn't figure out where I was the first time. It was actually that's going to go away in a second. All that little bleepy noises. Yeah, I couldn't figure out where I was. I was actually in an opera house.
Okay.
There were people like in the basement, and I was helping them to get away. And then all of a sudden, I was like in another city. And then I heard that they the next day they bombed the opera house in Kharkiv or Kharkiv. Um, but yeah, there's a lot of that stuff going on, and after 4 or 5 nights of that, I was like, I need a break, I can't, I got to work during the day, and I was getting up at night at like 3 o'clock in the morning, 3:50 in the morning every night, because I'm very conscious of what's going on.
Right.
You
You're
know,
conscious of what's happening. Now, so when this happens to you, do you wake up and you're conscious?
no, I'm conscious when I'm there, and then I say, okay, I can't, I got to get away from this, and then I just wake myself up. I just,
Okay. So
I mean,
you're
the truth is,
you're
I'm never.
conscious, you're conscious when you're conscious as your body leaves and your vessel's sleeping, and you're conscious of where it's going.
No, no. Like I was telling you, I think last time I kind of mentioned it when I first had this experience happen to me, and I can talk about that again if you want to refresh
Yeah.
your memory. Um, but after that experience, what would happen? Well, actually, it was before the experience that it started to happen to me, where I would fall asleep at night, but consciously I would still be awake.
That's what I mean. Yeah.
Yeah, so I would never be not awake,
Right.
right? And it was strange, and I didn't know what was happening to me. And this is after I learned to meditate 30 something years ago. And I kept going to my friend who was a very advanced human being. And
Right.
I was like, dude, I'm going crazy, I don't know what's happening to me. And that's when I told you I had that, he would just say, is it a good thing or a bad thing? We would just kind of go on. But then the culmination of that was, of course, that time I told you about in the restaurant
Right.
where, where he looked at me I thought I was dying. I thought I was having a heart attack, and he looked at me from across the table and he said, repeat after me. And I'm like, there's no fucking way I'm saying, I was thinking it in my mind, there's no way I'm saying this shit. Whatever you want me to say, you're the devil, and I ain't doing it, and he heard me without me verbally saying it. And he said, come on, dude, you've known me for 1,000 lifetimes, and I said the words, and that's when everything changed.
And what were the words again?
I am that, thou art that, all this is that.
And that's that. That's all there is to it. Nothing else needs to be said.
Yeah.
So yeah, and I feel like that more and more people have that type of accessibility. So it's interesting to hear because like I woke up this morning, and it's not the first time, but I knew that I'd been out doing all kinds of stuff. I
Yeah.
could feel it in my body. Sometimes I can feel it, and it contains some information, but yeah, like what you're talking about, it feels like stuff like that. Like we're bringing balance, or we're um, stabilizing areas, or whatever the case is. But it's such a, again, it's such a multi kind of thing. There's narratives, there's information, there's disinformation, there's a dimensional experiences or like the experiences you're having. I saw this.
Sorry, Zana's asking if I talked about Ukraine.
Well,
She missed it. Yeah.
go ahead and tell her because
No, so I was telling her. I was telling Todd that the last 5 nights in a row I've been there, and actually the first night I didn't know where I was. I was in some kind of opera house, and I was trying to help people get out of this place. They were underground though, and then the next day they bombed it, or that that I guess I was there right before it happened, and then I was with the president of Ukraine, and they were moving him from a different location. So yeah, I mean, and I'm very aware of it, and there's such a bigger play going on here,
that's what I was going to get to. Yeah,
yeah, I know, I
keep going,
know, I
keep
know.
going, keep
Yeah,
going.
there's such a bigger play going on here that's so multidimensional. Um, and it's interesting because technology, which is what I work in, right? I work for Microsoft.
Okay.
So we just announced that we cut off all.
I saw that.
Yeah. So and they were trying to, plant viruses in Ukraine, and we told Russia, do you want them back? When we picked them up, right? We asked them
Say
for
that
them.
again. Say it again.
They tried to wipe out the infrastructure for Ukraine with viruses, and we knew about it. And we
Okay.
said, do you want these back? And you know what I mean? I mean, it's funny because I mean, it's not funny, but it's funny because from the standpoint of this was meant to happen. I
Yeah. Yeah.
this COVID is not a mistake.
Right.
What's happening in Ukraine is not a mistake.
Right.
Okay, everybody I've talked to that's had COVID, that didn't leave the physical, has told me that it's completely altered their life.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
So they've changed the way that they used to be, and they've all of a sudden woken up and realized what's important in life.
Right.
What's happening in Ukraine. You see the entire world, right, saying never again. Right. You see them all saying no. Right. And this is a shift on a monumental level consciously.
Yeah.
Right. It's the same game that's been playing out for millennia. Right. It's in the Roman time, it was the emperor and all his generals. Then it was the queen and the king and all the nobles. Now it's Putin and all his oligarchs. Right. It's the same game that's been playing out over and over again, and people are tired of it.
Yeah.
Right? Even the Russian soldiers don't want to be there. They don't want to fight this war. And
Yeah.
the problem is that it's the Russian people that need to do something about it. I mean, we're doing something about it in America, and other countries are doing something about it too. But it's the Russian people. And I see three timelines here playing out, right? There's three possibilities, right? Either he's going to figure it out and leave, which I don't see him doing because he's been in power for so long, right? That he doesn't know any better, right? He's lost touch with reality. And he really doesn't want Ukraine to become free, right? He wants the old KG used to be and everything that used to be back. I don't see that ever coming to fruition, right? So either his own people are going to kill him, right? They're going to figure it out, and they're going to say, look, we can't do this. This is just, they're going to wake up, no matter what the risk is, right? And they're going to do something about it. Or he's going to pull out, right? Or something else is going to happen that I can't talk about. But
Okay.
ultimately, those are the timelines that are currently playing out. And I mean, my heart just breaks for the Ukrainian people because, and not only that, but the people that are fighting the war, right? Even the Russian soldiers that are kids that don't want to be there, that are punching holes in their own gas tanks. This is ridiculous, man. I've seen enough of this in my life. Enough suffering and enough pain that it needs to stop, right?
Yeah. And I think that's what's happened. Let me say first, Zana Kozar, our sister and her beautiful family, she was born in Kharkov, and so was Tehran Warren.
Yeah, Kharkov, I think, is the place that I was at.
So, okay, let's see. What does this say? Putin doesn't know what else to do. but be
Why not
Putin.
talk about something that's so silly?
Well, let's just make a connection, or at least
Yeah,
work off of this. Okay, so here's my thing. All right,
yeah,
I know, and what you said, I think, is really needs to preface it all. Okay, there's a lot more going on than the way it looks. Number one, so we can look at that energetically, etherically, physically, whatever, um, consciousness wise. But what is the difference between Putin, if we're going to focus our attention, which we're finding out more and more every day, has a superpower aspect to it that we're just going to be coming into more and more awareness of. So our thoughts, they do something. These people you're talking about, these kids punching holes in the gas tank, the soldiers that don't want to be there, the world in general feeling the way you do. But what's the difference between Putin and Biden and the Queen and all these other leaders? America is in several countries right now covertly and has been all over the globe imperialistically. There's all kinds of perspectives here. And so I look at this and go, okay, do we need to focus our attention on an individual place, although that can be encompassed in a more general, broad kind of intention? And I'm talking about just the structure and the infrastructure of what is the same thing contained in, let's say, Putin's energy and those around him, as well as Biden and those around him, or I would say the people around Biden, because Biden, I don't think, can hold a thought. But I guess what I'm saying is maybe what we're feeling is the alignment. And of course, the fluctuations of the emotional, of the human, which is good because that's a superpower. Our emotions are a superpower. But yeah, I mean, it's just like, is it really? And I love the timelines because to me that serves like a microscopic example. Like, are the people going to take him out? Is this going to happen? Is that going to happen? But also, is that not going to be true for everywhere else in the world where these things have an anchoring in duality and bullshit and illusion?
I mean, that's the whole point, right? Is that it's always a crisis in the world. It's always something, right? It's the same thing that's playing out over and over again.
Yeah,
And this was my experience, right? The problem is that we we look out there, and I'm not saying people aren't suffering and people aren't dying and it's not horrible, but we look out there and we try to point fingers at the problem. And truthfully, it's a hard thing to say. It's the ultimate truth. We're all responsible. We have to look in the mirror and take responsibility for the state of everything everywhere. Because, my experience 30 something years ago was not an experience of the mind, right? It was an experience where the mind completely stood still. The
right.
whirlpool of the mind went silent forever. Like, I have no inner monologue. I have no inner dialogue. And the one thing that was became known, right? I didn't become. I was always that. Was that we are loved on a scale that's unfathomable, right? The human body, right, is the vessel that we occupy, and we need to be able to look beyond name and form. And this is the problem. There's always going to be some type of chaos playing out, but if we don't participate in it, right, we all have to die while we're still alive, and that's the ultimate truth.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Right? We all have to come to a point where we're standing on the diving board and we just have to admit that we don't know. We are completely and utterly lost.
As is everyone else.
Right. But I'm saying this is a personal journey. This is a
Absolutely.
journey on a
Yeah.
personal level. And when I say personal, what I mean is the thing that we think we are, this eye that we create for ourselves, this lens that we create for ourselves that we look through, that's colored by fear and colored by belief and colored by all these different things. That's an illusion. And we look out there, right? And we say, this is reality. Ultimately, the journey is an individual one until you are no longer identified as an individual. And the ultimate path and the ultimate truth is is that you are everything everywhere. And
Yeah.
once you come to that state, you exist there forever. And at that state, all things become possible,
Right.
right?
Right.
That is the journey we all have to face and we all have to go through. And there's a much bigger picture, and I'm hoping that humanity is going to find out about it. I'm sure they are. It's coming. And I think part of what's playing out right now with COVID and what's going on in Ukraine and what's going on with suffering in the world, right? This imbalance that we have is a reflection of the imbalance in our own selves, right? And the more that we bring that into balance, right, the more that will be reflected in where we live, who we
Right.
are, what we identify with.
But there still seems to be a catalytic type of opposing frequency at all times, and I think we know that from a higher perspective, yin and yang and such. And so I'm just reflecting on your journey, not to point you out, but as an example, because I see what's happened to you, and I don't look at the linear time. A lot of people, for instance, have come on this show and they describe the same type of metamorphosis, the same type of journey. It might be contained in a longer period of time or a shorter period of time. I've met people that had these experiences in the 60s. But what I'm trying to say is that, like in your situation, with the wealth of experience and epiphany that you've shared and that you've experienced, uh, yet there's still this other thing. And let me just try to make a stab at it. The other thing is, from your perspective, like as we can put ourselves in your shoes and see the similarity of the journey, the flow of the journey. Yet you look at Ukraine and you have these emotions and these feelings, which isn't so much about Ukraine, but like you said, about the whole thing. Uh, and you also have this experience where you're conscious as you leave your sleeping body and you're in these places, which other people have talked about this type of thing as well on the show. So you're somehow or another carrying a charge. You're working, you're in your own space and in the collective, which is one and the same. We're trying to bring balance to it. It's obvious through you journeying over there and assisting people. So that's still there. Is all of that going to go away while we're still physically in these bodies before transitioning? Or do you see it as something that's going to happen, this place where we're going to realize the things you're talking about? And are we going to leave the body and find ourselves in that space? What do you think?
I mean, I think that we all journey. I mean, it's whether we're aware of it or not. And I think that that's the ultimate truth, is that we there's no difference between me and you or me and all the other people on the call. We're all one and the same, right? It's our awareness of that sameness, right? It's that expansion of the lens that we look through. It's that wiping clear of the colored lens, right? Letting go
Mm-hmm.
of the fear. The greatest motivator in life for people is fear. And that's why it's been used throughout history to try to change things, right? What I'm saying is that that's the ultimate goal for everybody, is
Yeah.
to get to that point where we are no longer willing to play that game,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
We're not going to get, like somebody said, I gets lost in the shuffle, right? We all gets lost in the shuffle,
That's
right?
Bruce. He's our Soulogy comic. He's got some great
Yeah,
one-liners.
right. Yeah. We all get lost in the shuffle. And that's part of the human condition and being in the physical. But you can be in the physical and also consciously be in multiple locations at the same
True.
time.
True. I mean, I'm just looking at and in this case, the topic's Ukraine. Okay, or it could have been COVID the day before the Ukraine thing happened, because as I've said, and I'll say it one more time, Drudge Report, 24 hours after the Ukraine invasion, whatever you want to call it, 80 headlines, 57 headlines from the top before they mentioned COVID. Okay, so I see what you're saying and what we're trying to, like, encapsulate here. What when are the when is the are the physical situations and occurrences going to align, and I think they are, but they're getting that way, align with the work that we've done within ourselves. So many people around the world, it's growing at such a wide scale and so quickly. But what I'm saying is, I think this is the tip of the iceberg. I would be impressed if we go to the Vatican, and I'm not a antagonist. I'm just saying it would only make sense that certain things in the physical and the experience that we share would start to show the mirror effect of what we've done within ourselves, as within without. So I would be very impressed to see the world, the people going to the Vatican, going to the CIA, going to the monarchy in England and other monarchies and saying, you got a shitload of wealth here, okay? And we need to do something. We need to go into the real history, not the recent history, but the real history, and see what's gone on here.
I mean,
And
the
what,
problem is that the history that, as we know it, right, of humanity and also this planet has been hidden. You know, one of the things that I started laughing about, I actually watched a video one day, and there was a general there, and there was a major there, and they had launched an ICBM test, right? And the ICBM missile was flying at like 17,000 miles an hour to go into space, right? And this craft flew into the picture, shot a beam from one side of the missile, flew around the other side, shot another beam, and then the top of the missile came off, right? And everybody's like, "What the hell is that?" Right? Here's the true story, right? Humanity thinks we own this planet. We don't, right? We have races of beings that have been here forever.
right,
Most of their bases are underground, and they're waiting for humanity to actually wake up. On one hand, there has been manipulation, there's no doubt about it. But on the other hand, we're at a point in life where let's put away childish things. And the thing that's allowed that to happen is technology, right? You can't hide anymore. Putin, and the stuff that he was trying to say, it was debunked immediately, right? We have satellites up in space. We have people walking around with cell phones. So it's changing everything. What's going to happen eventually is we're going to find out that we're not alone, nor have we ever been, right? That is going to be the point where everybody goes, holy shit, the world's ready for it. Most of the people on the planet know the truth. We instinctually know the truth.
yes,
Here's the rub. If we can't see past name and form with each other and take care of our brothers and sisters, how the hell are we going to get along with a species that doesn't even look like us?
right.
Right?
So the real disclosure isn't going to be, here's our true history. Here are these questions of the Vatican, the monarchy, and so on. It's going to be how this earth was seeded, who's here.
Yeah, the
What,
whole ripping the band-aid off, man. That's what
I'm
the
with
name,
you. I'm with you. Let's rip it off.
I say rip the thing off, and let it lay. There might be some people that'll freak out. I'm okay with that. I know 100% that it's true. I'm not telling you something that I don't know is true or something that I read. Okay, I'm telling you that this is the truth, right? And ultimately, right, it's going to come. It's coming, and it's been coming. They're putting a certain spin on it, to try to say, we don't know what they are, and that's just total bullshit, because we have our own craft that are electrogravitic. Somebody mentioned 0 point energy, ZPE, right? So we've had the ability for free energy for everybody on the planet for tens since probably the 1960s and 70s,
Yeah.
right? Where
Yeah.
it's clean energy. Everybody could have it, but the only reason it's not released is because we're so addicted to oil. They're afraid of collapsing the economy, right? That's their message, right? Which is also bullshit.
Of course
And
it is. Of course it is. And
right,
the cure for cancer. I mean, I've told this story a few times,
it's
and
been
in my,
around forever.
of course it has. I
There's,
mean,
there's no money in curing people.
exactly. So,
I
I
mean,
mean, this stuff that's coming out, it feels like, okay, that once one big domino falls, they're just going to be flattened. Because they're so interconnected. I'm talking pharmaceutical, the war machine, the oligarchs, uh, the energy oligarchs. I mean, it's all so connected. But
Well,
at
even
the
just
but at
as
the same,
blatant as any other country, though.
what's that?
America is no saint.
No.
It's the same game that's been playing out throughout history, right? Everybody tries to jump on the bandwagon and take responsibility for the good shit, but
Right.
nobody wants to take responsibility for the bad shit, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's the problem. Again, right? We all have to take responsibility on a personal level and be real and say, I suck. I need to actually change what I'm doing and I need to actually take action. It's easy to say something, it's
Mm-hmm.
hard to actually do something to change it to make it better. And that is the message for humanity. We're all responsible for ourselves. If we all woke up one day and said, you know what, the next time I pass somebody that's homeless, fuck it. I'm not going to just ignore it. I'm going to do something about it. The next time that I see somebody starving, I'm not going to go buy a new fucking iPhone. I'm going to take that money and I'm going to send it somewhere or put it somewhere that actually changes somebody's life.
Hmm.
Right? The problem with spirituality and the problem that all these techniques, whether it's yoga or meditation, they're all meant to be held on to loosely. Because eventually you have to give that up. Because you have to give you up. When you're standing on a diving board and you jump, it's a leap born of faith, not belief, because you can't take you with you.
True.
And that's the truth.
So how does Kevin stay centered when it comes to an issue like Ukraine or COVID or these things that you're talking about? How do you stay centered and not get charged one direction or the other?
Because I see past duality.
So I understand that, but I'm trying to learn. Okay, that's why I love this show. But like everybody else, and apparently you as well, get pulled in and pick a side, whether we're conscious of it or not.
No,
Well, hang on a second. Hang on a second. You have quite a bit of conviction in your words about Putin, and
because
I'm not
those are the
knocking you.
possibilities. Those are the possible timelines.
Okay. Okay. Yeah. So in other words, you're mentioning names to explain the situation, and it's not, the emphasis is not to be on the names, it's to be on the occurrence, and here's how we describe it based on the players and the location and so on. I get that.
Yeah, I
Okay.
mean it's what needs to play out for the betterment of everybody, and ultimately, the suffering that's involved in it is the hard part because being human and being in a body, we're going to feel that,
Of
and
course.
and it's real. And when you understand the amount of love that how much we that is the driving force of the universe, right? That's what makes everything possible, right?
Right.
Everything is created because of that.
Right.
And like you asked me a specific question: how do you stay centered? It's because I realized through the experience, not through the mind, but through the experience, that that's the ultimate truth. And it's like you can't unsee that. You can't unfeel it. It's like a nuclear bomb going off in your lab, right? It changes reality for you.
I think some people that, okay, I would just say it this way. I think we're getting to a point, or we've come to a point, or we've been in a place where, because I remember years ago in these communities, you just heard a lot of fluffy love and light, like, just throw love and light at it, just throw love and light at it, and then there came in this balancing frequency, let's just say, or stream of, hey, it's there, we're seeing it, this isn't cool, like this shouldn't be going on, and then you have the evolution of, well, what's my role in this? Where can I send myself? Which takes me to what I wanted to take you or
Well,
ask you.
it's like you're saying, Todd, right? Pain and pleasure are equal teachers, right?
Right.
The problem is that life is like the edge of a samurai sword. On one side we have pain and on the other side we have pleasure. When we have pleasure, we're afraid of losing it when we have pain, and we jump across the blade and we get cut, right? Now we're suffering and we want to go back to where we were, so we jump back across the blade again and we get cut.
Okay.
The problem is in realizing that you're the blade. You're the blade and you're that which you seek, and you're the one that's seeking it. You're all of the above. That is the meaning of I am that. You are that. All of this is that. It's all one thing.
Right.
There's no separation between observed and observer. It doesn't
Okay.
exist. God exists because you are, and you exist because God is.
Right. Now, we equate that to the human experience, which you're involved with and I'm involved with. And here's just a quick comment, Serena, okay, which kind of leans to this. These are creation times. Are we creating from the point of light versus dark? It's old, it's over. Okay, so now this is where I was leading you, or ask you. So it seems like that there's a point where you go, okay, what can I do? I take this into myself. Something like Ukraine happens, and you have this stream coming from myself or one of our mirrors that's very convicted, that's very passionate about the situation, that feels for these people. Okay, so we might say, as an individual, I'm going to send, the best I can send of me to this people or to this place. But then there seems to be another part, which is, hey, I can see there is no dark and light. Every one of these souls chose to do what they're doing. It's not ambivalence at all. It's just, what's the best thing I can do, period. And
Yeah, I mean,
that is to hold that. And I'm not saying this is the gospel. I'm just saying I'm trying to engage a conversation, but that is to hold that perspective and embody that perspective. Because if I do that, then I'm going to create from my field the same type of neutrality. So is there a space in between? Is that one phase being involved? Okay. And then another phase being, hey, I'm going to focus on myself as within, without.
so let me go back, okay? And this, hopefully this will answer your question from my own personal experience, right?
Yeah.
The experience that I had, right? When I said the words, right, and I just expanded, right? And the first two questions I asked was, why me? And the answer I got was grace. The second question I asked was, does everybody get this? And the answer was, when they're ready. And that's when I saw the two beings pop in and they said, you have the option to stay or to go. You can stay here or you can leave. Right.
Mm-hmm.
And at the time, you know, the experience, it's like, I can't go anywhere because until everybody gets this, nobody's free. That's the thought that was running through my head. 30 years later, right? And wisdom has taught me, and this is the other thing that answers your question, at least from my own perspective, right? The one thing I realized through that experience is there's nothing to do. There's
That's my
nothing
point.
There's nothing to accomplish. There's nothing to achieve. There's nothing to become, right? It already is, right? It already is. It's the way it's supposed to be. And that, right, is a hard lesson for people to understand, that we are loved so much, right, that we have the ability to choose our destiny, our path, our experiences in life, and how they play out, because we don't go away. When the body dies, we still exist. So it's all about the lessons that we learn and we go through. That is a very, very, very difficult thing for the mind to understand, because you can't say that when you see kids and women and people suffering, right? But that is what the experience is about, because that's when the mind stands still forever and you know the truth. You realize the truth and you look past it. That doesn't mean that you don't act. That doesn't mean that you don't care. That doesn't mean that you don't love. What it means is you aren't attached to the outcome.
Right. Right. And if I get it, then everyone will get it. I mean, if I truly believe that I am that, I don't, even for me to make a statement that they're not getting it, okay, to me is running counter to what is that.
Well, I mean,
Because
there is no them.
that's what
That's
I'm
the
saying. That's what I'm saying. So, like, it's not like not doing anything from apathy. I'm not saying that. What I'm saying is, if I understand or if I embody I am that, then my thoughts are generating our shared reality, my reality. This is my reality. You're whatever, you're part of it. If I'm thinking that they're not awake, or I'm thinking humanity has to suffer, then I'm creating that.
correct.
So I'm like, I'm not. That's why I'm asking the question. Like, it seems like
What
there's
I'm
almost
saying is the
like a
gift.
bridge.
What I'm saying is though is the gift that you get is that you have no thoughts. I don't even know how I do my job because I literally do not have an inner monologue or an inner dialogue.
Mm-hmm.
Like there is no thought and then I go blah, right? It doesn't work like that. It's like the mind, the whirlpool of the mind literally stands still. And I can remember that, you know, 1 second I was this and the next second I was that. And I felt guilty for no longer feeling guilty.
Right.
And
Right.
the mind is still struggling because the experience is so new to me. And I'm like, wait a minute, what happened to everything that was happening? What happened to the record in my head, the
Right.
broken record? What happened to all that shit? And it was just gone. And there was this place. The best way I can describe it is this place where is unlimited potentiality.
Yeah.
Right? It's very very completely empty and completely full at the same time, and you identify with that and you're there and you just go holy shit. I mean literally it's like you're sitting in a chair in a dark room and somebody opened the door and you thought that everything that you saw in that dark room was reality, and all of a sudden they just flipped the light switch on. And that's the human journey. We're all standing in our own prison cell of our own creation, shaking the doors saying, let me out, let me out, let me out, let me out, right? And it takes somebody to come along and wipe your lens clean and say, look, you have the keys in your hand, just put them in the door and turn it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And there's a lot of people that have come on this show and that watch this show that have had the experience that you're talking about, be
Of
it for a
course.
millisecond, be it in a dimension, be it in a lucid dream, be it in a near death experience, whatever the case is. So
But that
it,
too you have to let go of because
I,
it's not about the experience, man, right?
I, this is where I'm going.
I know.
Okay.
I'm
So
just
this
like,
is what I'm trying to say is that there has to be some validity. There has to be, if it's nothing more than just experiencing life and living, these these experiences we've had, I'll just call it the void, okay, with the void, with the Holy Mother's womb, whatever you want to call it. To me, we're not staying there for a reason. We're not sustaining that frequency because it is the all frequency. And basically, I think somebody just put it up a minute
why
ago.
do you think that
If we
is?
don't have, well, this is my point. This is where I'm inquiring because I don't know anything. But what I'm trying to say is, as somebody was making reference earlier, we're, at least in this realm, we're in duality because the minute we're out of it, we're in the void. We're at home base. We're home, whatever you want to call it, these experiences that we're talking about. So to me, it feels like that we have these experiences, call them near death, whatever you want to call them. They come in many different forms to find that place that's unmistakable. And it doesn't matter if anyone believes you, right? Uh, is to gain a perspective and to have a grounding experience that we can carry forward and then infuse into this experience to bring transformation, and a trajectory is built, sustained, and expanded towards that moment, and see what type of alchemic influence it has on this shared experience.
I love your energy, man.
You know,
It's awesome. You know, I had this conversation with somebody one day, and it's kind of relevant to what you were saying, right? Where's this all leading to? Like we're either in the void or we're not, right? And I had this experience with a guy one day, and he was asking me, hey, when I'm in deep meditation and I disappear, it's incredible. Like I'm in this place, the void, I don't exist, and it's just pure bliss, right?
Hmm.
And I said to him, because he asked me the question, you know, but when I come out of meditation, I'm no longer there, right? And I said, well, this is the problem, isn't it? Right? We go deep into meditation, we don't exist, and it isn't until you come out of meditation until you say, I experienced that. Now, it's a very subtle difference, but it's a big difference. There's a huge difference between saying, I experienced that, and I am that experienced. And that is the I am that, thou art that, all this is that. That is when you jump into the void, right? And you no longer exist as going in and coming out. That's when you fall asleep and consciousness stays awake forever. This point where throughout history, right? That's why the pyramids are a triangle. That's why the Father, the Son, the Holy Ghost, right? There's the observed and the observer and the apparent perception of the separation that exists between whatever I am and whatever I'm looking at. There comes a point when you jump off that void that you no longer exist, right, here. Your consciousness is everywhere, even though you're here at the same time. You permanently reside in the void, and you permanently reside in the physical, and
Right.
you permanently reside everywhere, right? That is the journey. So you can literally just, and I guess the best word you could use is attention. You put your attention on it, and it just happens. And all of a sudden, you're above somebody's house and you're looking down and you're going, I can see where you live. You live in Mexico. You live, there's a church right across the street from you. You know, those things that I've heard you talk about before on the show, right? That other people have experienced is our innate nature, our
Right.
ability to walk through what appears to be physical matter, but it's just energy vibrating at a certain frequency. Match the frequency and you go through it, right?
It seems
This
like the cosmic radio bandwidth has
is
expanded, though. Like, I mean, so
has
like I love these
we're being
conversations,
helped.
but like there seems to be okay. So there, this is all me. From your perspective, this is all you. I mean, but almost like I'm going to try to describe this. So this isn't going to be perfect. Uh, there's a there's an infinite container containing all these fractals that are having this experience with each other. There seems to be a trajectory of expansion. The radio bandwidth of the cosmic radio is bigger than ever and getting bigger every day. People are pulling in all kinds of information, experiences, and comparing notes, leading us to this field of experience and potential that you and I are
Because we're being
sitting
helped,
in. Yeah.
right? There's a plan, right, that's going on that's actually helping us. I mean, I don't want to talk about it.
Well, let me ask you this, because you said
Sure.
something a minute ago. I don't want to put you on the spot because I've had people come on this show before, and I've said the same thing to them, and I'm not singling you out. But
Single me out, I don't really care.
here's my thing. No, because I know you were just about to get back into this, and you mentioned it earlier, and I think this is a good point. It's a good question. I'd love to hear an answer. So we've had people come on. I see them on platforms. I have this information. I can't tell you about it. Even my brother, Franco De Nicola, who I did 50 plus shows with, had the best intel I've ever seen, which had a galactic flavor to it, but also the other elements, let's say, of the universal that we might know about or have heard about. But what I feel the universe is itself is free. I feel a soul is free. Everything is shared. Everything is free. Why is it that you or anyone else would not share a part of their intel because the world's not ready for it? Where does that, to me, doesn't sound like the void's message? That sounds like
No, no,
somebody or
that's not what I
something
meant.
having an influence on someone else, and we've
Yeah,
all been there.
that's not what
Where
I meant. You can say something and those that are ready to hear it will hear it. It's just
Okay.
the way it is in the world. It's not a great secret, but it's a great
Well, I
question.
mean, like in the
I'm
case with the
saying the
Ukraine,
question you asked is a great question, right? So
right?
why is it that people will say, but I can talk about it if you
Well,
want to talk
let's
about it.
use the example with Ukraine, and you don't have to say anything you don't want to say. But I'm just as example because that's how it came up. So you said there was three timelines you explained to, and you can't talk about the other one. Why
No,
could you not talk about the other one? And not to pick on that example, but just what? Why would someone not, whether it's you or someone else, why would not somebody share what they have?
okay, well, I mean, because I don't want to go down a path that frightens people, because ultimately, it's never going to happen. It won't be allowed to happen,
Okay,
right? But
so it's not. So it's really not a possible timeline.
it's a possible timeline that it could start that way, but
But
if it
it's
does,
not going to happen. You know
no.
it's not going to happen, then it is not a possible timeline, period.
Well, I mean, it's a possible timeline where it would scare the shit out of people, and it would cause people to panic, and it would
It's
cause
not a
people.
timeline. It's suggestive programming in my
Right,
mind.
right, and I don't want
That's
to
right. So
create
it's
that.
not even
If we
in
know
the
that it's
field.
never going to be allowed.
Right. So it's not in the
Right,
field.
right.
Um, and this is why, I ask these questions because I feel like everything should be in the open. Let's rip the Band-Aid off and information
So what
shouldn't
I'm
be withheld.
talking about,
But
what I'm talking about,
but
is if Putin launches nuclear weapons, he already knows that he can't do that. He's already been put on notification, as has America, as has China, as has everybody. Everybody's been told very, very, very clearly that you will not be allowed to destroy this planet. And they have, when I say they, the people, I call them people because there's no difference for me, whether they're from here or they're not from here, it doesn't matter, right?
right.
But they are of an incredibly high consciousness, right?
Of course. Of
They're the
course.
ones that are also helping us. But they know that, this bluff is not a bluff that's real, because we all know, right, that that's just not going to be allowed. It will not be allowed to happen. And he can bluff to scare people that don't know that, which is actually what the message is, right? So that was the reason that I didn't want to talk about it, because I know that it will never be allowed.
So it's not a possible timeline.
It's a possible timeline that he could try to launch them, but I can tell you this, they'll never hit the ground.
Right. So, and this goes back to what we were talking about earlier, like the things that we focus our attention on. Now, I totally get what you're saying. You don't want to implant
Right.
a stream of consciousness that people can attach to that doesn't have. Okay. But like this is what I was talking about earlier in having a discussion with you and others is like where do we put our attention? I mean, it seems like it's being driven to the present, driven to where the body itself is the central location, and within the body itself, in its physicality and etherical aspects, is containing all that. And we're starting to tap into that. So many people are becoming empowered and less of a mindset to be following something or some group or something, right? Someone. So, I mean, to me, it feels like that the consciousness that we're sharing is starting to show some dividends. And yes, these distractions and distortions are still going to present themselves, but they're really not holding any weight. They're not sticking anymore.
Yeah, I mean, ultimately, what's going to play out is going to play out. And, you know, I go back again, I guess, to um, being able to be present, right?
Yes.
And the message is for us to be present, right? To slow down. I mean, the world is moving at a very, very fast pace, right? Especially with technology and everything we have to deal with, right? So ultimately, the message is to be present, right? And to take responsibility for what appears to be the self. Because when you take responsibility for what appears to be the self, that's an expansion. And then later on, what happens is that you start going through a lot of trauma in life. You start dealing and freaking out. You'll have all kinds of issues, where you think you're going crazy, right? Because you're bringing up all these things that this lens, right, that we look through,
Right.
we experience it through the physical. Eventually, what happens is you get to a point where, you're standing on the diving board, and if you jump, then the risk is you no longer will be, but you have to have faith that you'll be caught. You have to have faith. You have to make a decision, right? That I believe that whatever your poison is, whether it's, you're a Christian, a Buddhist, it really doesn't matter. But I believe that enough in love that I choose to no longer be part of doing harm.
Right.
Anywhere for anything. And I'm willing to no longer exist to do that. So I'm just going to jump. I'm just going to jump into the void. And if I don't exist anymore, it's okay.
Right.
Because this reality that I live in no longer works for me. It no
Right.
longer serves me. So I'm leaping. And when you do that, when you leap, all of a sudden the reality shifts, right? Everything shifts,
Right.
right? People talk about 2D and 3D and 5D and this earth is coming. It's already here. It's always been here. I walk around all the time and I look up in the sky and I see giant ships. I can remember walking around as a police officer when I used to be one, thinking I was going nuts because everything I looked at was the color violet. Every living thing was violet, right? And I thought it's like wearing a pair of glasses. And I'm like, I'm going nuts. And I would go to my friend and go, I'm going nuts. And he would go, is it a good thing or a bad thing? And
That's what your friend said.
Yeah, and I hated him for that, but it was a process. And he would say, look, here's what I want you to do. I want you to go home and sit in a chair, and I want you to pick something out that's distance from you and just allow yourself to go there.
Mm-hmm.
Just allow yourself to be up in the corner of the room. Allow yourself to be somewhere else. So he would give me these instructions that I had no idea what the hell I was doing, right? But they all led up to that one thing, that one culmination where I thought I was dying in a crowded restaurant, crying, thinking that this is the end, right?
Yes.
And that's it. That's the journey. We come to a point where this is not, I don't want to live in this reality anymore. And I would rather not be here. Right. I would no longer exist. So I'm going to create a new one.
Yeah, I think many people here can relate to that too, because many of us, we joke about it here, beam me up, get me out of here. We've all had those moments countless times, but yet we still keep going. And then there's the thing about like the bluff, and like you said earlier, you don't attach to an outcome. So even the narratives generated by the streams of consciousness, let's say, that are behind the Bidens and the Putins and so on and so on, that we know they're there. We're not attached to whether there is a nuclear war or not. I mean, what I'm trying to say is, that's what I'm saying, that this neutrality covers all things. And so even in the narratives from people's channelings, there seems to be biased and stuff. Like it's interesting because I like the way a lot that you explain from your perspective, which is my perspective, which is I choose not to be a part of this anymore. I've spent enough time doing what I'm doing, or whatever the case is. I'm just simply making another choice, and that choice just happens to have the effect of changing my experience. Am I through with it? Am I through with this experience or not?
You're taking responsibility.
Do I want to be part of this? I'll call it a simulation or a playground. Do I want to be a part of this and see where it goes? Or do I want to move forward? Or not forward, but do I want to change the movie I'm in? Yeah. So
change the channel.
Yeah, change the channel. So yeah, I mean, it's really interesting because I feel more like what you were saying. People getting to a point saying, hey, you know what? I'm going to change the channel. That energy of even contemplating it, I think, is what you were describing at the top of the show in its physical representation, such as the children punching holes in the gas tank, the Russian people demonstrating as they can, the Ukraine people, the soldiers that don't want to be there. Like that, to me, that's what's really driving this whole thing now, is how we've gotten in touch with our feelings and the impact that our feelings have, such as exhaustion and being fed up with this or that, but also how do we turn that, and where do we put our focus? Do we put it into the individual episodes, or do we go to the roots of the trees and put our energy there and kind of cover everything in a fatal swoop?
Christ said that if you have the faith of a mustard seed, you'll say to that mountain, move, and it will move. The part that was left out of the Bible, right? The part that was left out was actually in the Gospel of Thomas, written probably, I think, 7 or 8 or 9 times in the Gospel of Thomas, is how to ask, right? Ask is as if it's already done. In other words, when you marry the mind and the heart together and you feel the experience as if it's already happened, right? When that happens, right, it's done.
It is done. And
The
so it is.
the universe, right, has to respond because you are it.
Mhm.
You exist literally everywhere as everything. And this is the journey for every human being
Hmm.
to get to the point where they become an angel. I was going to say an agent, but I said an
An
angel.
agent.
An angel.
Let's look at the etymology. They're probably one and the same.
An angel of change. In other words, you no longer reside just in the physical,
Right.
right? You no longer have these barriers that seem to be barriers before. They don't exist. But you don't go to a mountain and say move for the sake of just moving a mountain.
Yeah.
The way it works is wherever you're needed, then you're there.
That Gospel of Thomas, I don't think people realize how prolific that particular book is unless they have, researched or, looked into the Gnostics. But that that one book has created, or was the impetus through the Far East, through India, through parts of Russia, Europe. I mean,
Well,
I think
Jesus
it's it.
went to India.
Yeah. I mean, I think in Iraq, Thomas is a huge Christian sect,
Absolutely.
whatever they call it. There's Philip, there's Magdalene. I was going to ask you as well, based on the proximity that you have through your connection, based on some of the things that you said about Ukraine, for example, and just the way you carry yourself. There seems to be a lot of what we would call galactic influence in this experience, although the lion's share of it's not seen, certainly not on a shared scale, but certainly people have experiences on an individual level or small groups or couples. I kind of look at them as the facilitators, those aspects of us that we share, kind of facilitating. It could be from the future, whatever. I don't know. But I'm just wondering what your thoughts are in regard to what is that part of us? Why are they so prominent
Well, we're
in
not
this?
from here.
What's that?
We're not from this planet. We didn't come from here, right? We're human beings are made up of multiple races of beings, right?
Right.
And
Right.
and the experiment was the best of everybody, and ultimately, right? A great way to say it is being guided, right? There's polarities in the universe too that are would be similar to polarities like in Christianity, right? Good, bad, up, down, left, right, whatever you want to call it. But there's beings, I mean, can you imagine a civilization that is a million years advanced in technology, right?
No, I can't. I
Right.
can't imagine one that's 1,000 barely.
Right. So, but I'm saying we have technology
Oh,
that's
I know we do.
existed here on this planet that's 150 years in advance of what the
Or
public.
more than that. I mean,
It's amazing.
I believe that we're traveling through other universes. I mean,
Well, I
other
mean,
galaxies.
everybody thinks of us on this ball of rock, but they don't
Mm,
realize this whole solar system
mm.
is actually traveling, through the Milky Way galaxy at hundreds of thousands of miles an hour. We're
Yeah,
moving,
yeah,
right? So, everything's moving. And actually,
yeah.
we're hitting a part of the Milky Way galaxy that has a lot of charged energy particles. And some of our friends have been helping to buffer that, if you will. And that's what's causing a lot of things to change. If you
Yeah.
look at planetary atmospheric weather, it's heating up on this planet, but it's also heating up on Mars and Jupiter and every planet in our
Yeah.
solar system.
Yeah. This
We have
isn't
nothing to do
this
there.
isn't an Earth thing only.
This isn't an Earth thing only, and it's cyclic. And in India, they knew about it, right? 25,000 year cycles and 6,000 year cycles. This is something that happens, right? But I mean, humanity, right? There's places, and that's why everybody went down to Antarctica, because the ice is starting to melt, and it's exposing a lot of the things that they want to recover, because there's a lot of civilian satellites that can see that shit too. That's why they have a no-fly zone down there. But I mean, we've known about this for forever. We've known about this at least since the 1940s, late 50s,
Of
right?
course.
And we have our own we have our own we have our own space fleet. We have our own bases on other planets.
Yeah.
So you have NASA. You have NASA that is the public face of, space launching. I did a project here in Denver for Lockheed Martin Boeing Space United Launch Alliance, right? So the truth, right, is people that are in the know, a lot of them want the truth to come out. They want to tell people the truth. They want people to know.
Why
Uh,
don't they?
well, there's a lot of reasons for it, right? Number
What's the
one,
main? What do you think the main reasons are?
well, I mean, there's a lot of valid reasons, right? First of all, the technology can be very dangerous in the wrong hands.
Is it in the right hands now?
It is. Yeah, it is. But there's technology that's in the right hands too that could be released to the public. The way this works, if you go all the way back, there's a great book out there if you want to read a book. It was written by a guy named, I can't remember his name, but the name of the book is called The Day After Roswell. And it's a true story, right? It's about the crash it wasn't in Roswell. It was probably about 15 miles from the ranch that I owned in New Mexico,
Hmm.
outside of Ruidoso, right? So he talked about his job, and his job was to take the technology from Area 51 out, or the technology that happened in the Roswell crash, and then basically take that to the Army Engineering School at Fort Belvoir, Virginia, and then start handing that technology out to like Bell Labs and some of those other places. That's where we got a lot of the technology, where we went from vacuum tubes to integrated circuit chips,
Mm-hmm.
night vision, shit like that, right?
Yeah.
So this has been going on for a long time, and that's kind of what they do. They take the technology, they trickle it down. It usually ends up in the military industrial complex companies first, and then it goes to the military, and then a lot of it transitions over into the public, right? And
Mm-hmm.
some of these companies, and that, Eisenhower warned us about the military industrial complex. He was a big proponent of, or big objector to it, because he realized that once that happens, then things are going to be classified at such a level and so compartmentalized, where everybody thinks they're on the tip of the spear, and that's what they're told. But like even the president of the United States and a lot of people that you think would know about shit, they have no idea.
They have no access. They don't
Well,
have
I mean, it's
clearance.
not that. It's not that they have no access. They have no access because they're vulnerable. They're compromised before they're even elected,
Mm.
right? And that's the truth.
So, and I get all that. I mean, this information's out there in a lot more than that book. I mean, this is part of what you're talking about. That's not going to be kept down. I'd like to ask you this too before we get out of here.
Yeah.
I'm more interested in the human experience and in the what's and the whys and all that. I think it's fascinating that you have this place that you operate from, and that you have this experience obviously from more than the human aspect of leaving your body and specifically, you know what I'm saying,
Yeah.
specifically going to a specific location, Ukraine, and doing work. Now, my questions revolve around, why do you think, in your case, and again, this is just an example because everyone has their own experiences similar to this. You can call it grid work, whatever you want to call it. But like, from your perspective, why are you going there? What part of you is making that decision? And what do you know about why you're going there and who you might be collaborating
It's
with?
a great question, right? That's a great question. And the best way I can answer that is to say there is no me, and the ultimate reason is love.
That says it. The rest is just a story.
The rest is just a story. Yeah.
Yeah. Far out, man. I enjoyed this. Far out. So
Yeah. I mean,
you're in Colorado?
I am. Yeah.
Are you around Denver?
I'm in Denver. Yeah. I live in the
Okay.
Denver Tech Center. Yep.
Okay. No wonder. You're right there in the thick of it. That's a major gathering place. Let's just put it that way.
Well, I mean, there's several major gatherings.
Well, the airport itself, I mean, I know these places are all over the world, but I'm just saying that airport itself, there's a lot of irrefutable symbology throughout that airport that pretty much states things. Let's
Well,
just
I
put
mean,
it that
it was interesting because I was in Miami, and one of my rules is I won't go anywhere that's not beautiful, and I can't go fishing. But I was happy down in near the Florida Keys. But I came here to take like I said, to take the project on for ULA, for Lockheed Martin Boeing Space. And the whole time I'm watching them launch rockets, into space. I'm just kind of laughing to myself, going, it's just a moneymaker, right? The wheels got to keep spinning, but it's a lie. And
yeah.
I didn't come here for that. I didn't come here for that job. I came here for a whole nother reason. Maybe someday we'll talk about it. It's a central location in the United States, and there's a lot of underground bases here in
That's right.
Colorado and in New Mexico that I'm familiar with.
Arizona, Utah.
Utah, yeah, the Four Corners area, that whole area, right? So there's a reason I came here because of what's going to happen in the future, and that's why I came to Colorado.
I've had, I would bet you, going back 10, 11 years, I would say probably half a dozen people that have had uh, very intense, deep imprints upon their being, I guess, um, of Denver, of an occurrence or an event or a situation, we'll put it that way. And the crazy thing is, and I remember still the first time I heard this, which was in 2015, uh, all their stories are the same.
I got to tell you a story because I don't want you to tell me your story. I
Hmm.
want to tell you a story which is really interesting. When I came up here and I was doing the project for Lockheed Martin Boeing Space, we hired on a guy that became a friend of mine, a contractor, and he was running a different part of the project.
Mm-hmm.
And he came over to my place one night, and he said, "Look, dude, I don't know how to do this. I don't want you to think weird of me or fire me or get rid of me." But he said, "I have this journal that I've been keeping for the last 2 years." And he's a very kind of Christian, religious kind of person,
Hmm.
And he said, "But I don't understand this." He said, "I wrote your name in my journal 3 years ago." And he said, "I had an experience where we were standing on a balcony and you were pointing up into the sky and you were saying, 'Look, I told you so.'" And and there were these lights coming down and these ships coming down. And he
Hmm.
said, I don't know, because he didn't know anything about me. He just, knew my
He
what.
just tells you this 3 years later,
No, no,
right?
he told me when he came up here, but he
Well,
had,
it's, I mean, 3 years from when he
right,
wrote it. Yeah.
3 years from when he wrote it. And he said, "Look, I'm going to show you. Here's your name in the book, your first name and your last name, spelled the way it's spelled, which is a very unusual spelling." And he said, we're standing on a balcony and you're pointing up the sky and there's these ships with lights coming down.
Mm.
And I started laughing. I didn't know what to say to him. I was like, it's okay, man. Don't worry. I'm not going to get rid of you. Because he was worried that, he didn't really know me that well,
Mm.
but it was freaking him out because he's working with me. And it's in his journal, and a poor guy, I'm like, it's okay, bro.
I wonder how much of our collective interactions, such as you with this guy, okay, are going to be brought into our present memory banks. It would make sense that more and more of that would come to us. It wouldn't just be with the world, what we didn't know about the world, or what's been hidden from us, but actually the work that we're doing. I mean, I might have been right there next to you in Ukraine. I'm just you're conscious and I'm not. You know what
Well,
I mean?
we're all just one, and that's the ultimate goof of it all, is that we're all involved in it, and we all have our parts to play at any given moment. But what's interesting is time doesn't exist.
True.
And you come to this point, like I said, when you jump off the diving board, that you realize that, right? All there is the eternal present moment. It only seems to be the future or the past when you look through a lens.
That's
And what
right.
happens is when you jump off the diving board, your lens completely goes away. There's no longer a lens. You're no longer looking forward, and seeing that reality and saying, and then going from one object to the next, turning your telescope, saying, seeking greater happiness. What happens is it's like the lens gets smashed against the wall, and all of a sudden you just realize I am everything everywhere.
Yeah.
Right?
Yes. But
Yeah.
but you're still there and I'm here. That's the part I love. You're still there and I'm here. And
Yeah.
on that note, let me ask you one more question.
Sure.
I love picking your brain. So from just based on your perspective, with what you know, what you are, what you think, those that have transitioned, and I know we can cliche things and we can tie everything up in a nice, pretty bow, but you're there and I'm here. Uh, do you have any inclination, one way or the other, as to whether or not those that transition, at least some, anyone that may say make that choice, would still be here with us in the non-physical, working with us on what we're experiencing?
What do you mean by transition? You mean
Well,
like,
physically die.
oh, okay.
Are they, if they have that choice? Yeah. I
Absolutely.
mean, like, in other words, they still have skin in the game from their perspective. They're not ready to change the
No.
experience, and they hang out and work with us, so to speak.
Yeah, they do the same thing that kind of we do, where we fly around at night and then you come back and you kind of don't remember it, or it seems like a dream type of deal. They're just conscious of it because they're not limited by physicality, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
You also have the option, I think, to move on.
Yeah.
For me, when I was given the option, I was still in the physical, so it was like, you can leave. And what's crazy is I just having had happened to me. I'm in this restaurant, right? And at the time I was a police officer, and I'm sitting across, the table from my friend. And one second I'm this, next second I'm that. And I stood up and I was literally just going to walk right through the wall of the restaurant, not go out the front door. And my buddy put his hand on my shoulder and he said, don't do that one yet. You're not ready for that one yet.
What happened to your buddy, by the way?
He transitioned. He actually left the physical.
Has he ever come to interact with you, to your knowledge?
Not in a spiritual or physical form, but I feel him everywhere.
But I mean, to me, that's the same. I mean, like
Yeah.
you feel him. I mean, we think it's got to be an apparition, but obviously it doesn't.
Yeah, I see that all the time. I see. It's strange because, like, when I close my eyes, I can see my body, but it's like a negative, right? I can see my hands moving around. I can move my leg. It's like I close my physical eyes and I still see.
What do you mean? What do you mean it's a negative?
What I mean by that, it's a very subtle outline of energy.
Oh, I see.
Right, it's a very subtle outline of energy. It's like when I look at objects like a wall, I can see them as being solid, but at
Right.
the same time, I see everything moving
Yeah.
like a screen on the Matrix. It actually looks like an old black and white television, and
Yeah.
the fuzzes out, and you have all the little dots moving around.
Yeah.
That's what I see physical stuff as being if I go there. If
Have
I put
you,
that
I'm
vision,
just curious, have you had any visitations to your knowledge,
oh,
or
absolutely,
what people might call abductions? Do you have any memory of it?
absolutely, yeah.
Wow.
Ever
Can
since I
you
was a kid, yeah.
can you tell us the best one or one?
Well, when I first came to Denver in my apartment, I started laughing because I have this big screen TV behind me. I don't know if you can see it over there. See that TV right there?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah.
So I had just cleaned it the night before, right, with a special solution so that it had no dust on it. And the next morning I came out and there was fingerprints all over my television that were 3 fingers, but they were this long. And I started laughing. When I owned the ranch in Roswell, New Mexico, I came out one day and I looked up at the mountain, and there was a craft hovering above the mountain that was the size of an aircraft carrier. And it looked like it was made out of tinfoil, very shiny. And this kid that worked on the ranch with me, or for me, Craig, I grabbed him and I said, Craig, look up at the mountain and tell me what you see. And he just, his jaw just dropped open. And all of a sudden, I see 3 F-117 stealth fighters from Holloman Air Force Base flying right at it. And it just went straight up in the air so fast you couldn't even. They make
Good
noise,
luck. Good luck with that one.
noise because they use what's called gravity wave generators. But I mean, yeah, I've seen
That
the
would be
craft.
like that would be like having a slingshot and dealing with a death ray.
I was I was in a craft. I was in a craft above the earth, right?
Hmm.
And these beings were showing me this table, and it was a table that looked like a holographic table.
Right.
What's interesting is you're in the craft, and you can see through the walls.
Right.
They're like they're see-through. So I'm looking at the planet, but at the same time, they're showing me all this stuff on this table, and they just move, their hands, and this holographic thing come up, and they're showing me what's going to happen in the future,
Very cool.
right? So yeah, I've had them like my
What'd you
whole.
see? Did you see anything you can share that
Uh,
hasn't come?
it's all good.
Yeah, I know it's all good.
Yeah, it's all good.
It's always good. It's
Yeah,
always okay.
yeah,
When I was homeless when I woke up, it was 2 years. I'd see my son. He was 16, and being a father under those circumstances,
yeah.
I would say to him, "Hey, everything's gonna be okay." And he'd always tell me he had these dreads down in the middle of his back. He'd say, "Dad, it's always okay." And I'm like, "Yeah, you know what? You're right." Like you just encapsulated in one word,
Exactly
three
right.
words, right? Hey,
Yeah.
man, I really enjoy having discussions with you. It's very inspiring and cultivating to, uh, you know, good fertilizer for the seeds of awareness to grow and so on and so on. So I really appreciate you, and I thank you for coming in and honoring us with your presence. And I look forward to
Absolutely.
doing it again in 2022.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah, right.
See what's happening.
I love being able to spend time with you and everybody else that joined. Thank you. Um, it's all going to be okay.
Yeah, it's all okay. It's always okay. All right, brother. Peace out. Best to you and your family and everything.